Hello, everybody. Welcome back to our premier live virtual and hybrid events conversations. If we have not met before, if this is the first time you're tuning in, my name is Ken Kahn. I am the Director of Partnerships and Collaboration.
And I'm Roxanne Glosser, Director of Marketing and Learning with i2i Technologies. And today's video chat is going to be about engagement and support activities. So this is in our series of all things with virtual and hybrid events. So we know that the engagement and support activities can help take your virtual or hybrid events to the next level. So for our chat today, Ken, your mission, should you want to accept it, is to describe an engagement or support activity that helps make a virtual or hybrid event a success. And I know we chatted a little bit before, and so you said you have several different answers. So I look forward to hearing and commenting on what you've got to share with us today. So describe an engagement or support activity that helps make a virtual or hybrid event a success.
All right, yeah, there's lots of choices here because the support of the live virtual or hybrid event, that's what we do, right? We're supporting it. So there's lots of different options. And I was thinking, okay, there's this, there's that, which one do I want to go with? Sometimes I never know going into this, like if I'm going to get to answer first or not. So like I always have some different options so I don't just say same when Roxanne answers. But I think, I was thinking like, what's something that's, I feel like really unique. There's several of those too, but I'm going to go with a support activity. And the support activity I'm going to go with is our room monitors. I'm going with room monitors, and that's something that I don't think every live virtual or hybrid event has these. It's something that we've kind of instituted as a standard for the events that we support, where we want to have somebody that's basically in the room to support the presenters throughout. And we kind of modeled that off of anytime we would go to a live event, there usually be some type of a moderator, or they would call it a room moderator typically, and that person was just to welcome the audience, help the presenter, with timing, maybe go run and get a technical person if they needed that. And so we were like, okay, in a virtual setting, we want to have the same type of thing. And so we came up with this room monitor position where we have somebody that we give some basic troubleshooting technical training to. These are volunteers typically at the events that we support. And so we put together a whole package of information for them. We have a video we create for them. And basically they're kind of our go-to people in the rooms. And so when we support a session, we're always running around helping everything, but this is a person that stays with the presenter to support them throughout. And I think that really has made a difference and helped make the events that we support an even greater success, because then the presenters can, relax a little bit. They can focus on what they're there to do, which is to share their information or research or teaching techniques. Yeah, so I'm room monitors on this one.
That's a good one, because the room monitors, that's the one that we see specifically noted in the evaluations or in the surveys about how much the presenters appreciate that someone in the room to greet them. So I feel like I will want to go same this time, but that was I'm going to build on that for support, and then maybe we circle back and we'll do an engagement one too, so you can be thinking and listening at the same time. So building on the support aspects, because as you mentioned, the room monitors, and you talked about some of the materials that we prepare for them, that is connected into a larger thing. So one of the things that I really think is critical, and it came out of what we put together this year for one of our clients, and it was the entire communications plan. And when you think of it, part of the goal of that was to think through the communication, and that is huge for support, because we want to think through from the room monitor, from the presenter, from the attendees, from even the leadership team, what is it they need to know? When do they need to know it? How do we package that information for them? How do we organize that information for them? And then what's the best way to send it to them? And so there's a lot of elements for that. And I think that support activity, because it is well thought out, it's well organized, I think that is another piece of the success of some of the virtual and hybrid events that we've done. Now, we don't always do it on the grand scale of, the full communications plan, but we definitely are thinking through everything. We never accept that, oh, we've been doing Zoom, the world's been doing Zoom for, since 2020, and everybody knows what to expect and not. I think one of the things that we focus on is never assuming, just because you have been an attendee in a Zoom doesn't mean you know how to present. We even go through, I know several times this last one that we were working on presenting, and we want to get clearer on next time, of the support, is even the difference between presenting from a single monitor versus a dual monitor. What are the differences from that? Or if you need to present in your mobile from your car. But that, I think,
but it happens.
Right. Sometimes you could be mobile, and how are you going to do that? So we're going to continue to expand that. But that's, and that was one thing with the room monitors, to communicate to them and to support them, because everything with a virtual or a hybrid event, everything's integrated and intertwined. So it's not as simple as just, seeing someone in the hallway, grabbing them, bringing them into the conference room and saying, hey, I need help. It needs to be very planned out, very scripted, and so that everyone knows what's going on. So that would be what it's not like a specific like room monitor, but I would say the communication part of working with them in that support.
I was thinking you were going to go with presenter support, because that is another big chunk that we do that I think is different. We're communicating with the presenters pretty early on in the larger conferences and preparing, support videos for them to be using as they prep for their presentation or get ready for the big day. And even in the smaller events that we do that are more like one or two webinars, where we come in usually 30 minutes before the start time to just prep the presenters, make sure that they're comfortable and ready to go. In those cases, I guess we're acting more like room monitors in those cases where it's just a smaller event. So we don't have a bunch of moving pieces and have to be in several places at once. But yeah, I think we do. That's another unique thing we do, is just the amount of support and preparation we do for presenters.
And with that, even down to, because you can tell if we have worked with someone in a presenting capacity, because any subsequent meetings, they're definitely cognizant and aware of their on-camera presence, because that's one of the things we do work with. And we don't assume, because I know we've had some experiences where we assumed that because someone, has been on a Zoom that they understand, but we've had some witness protection program type of, backlit, where it's a very shadowy figure. And so that's one of the things, we do. When I say we don't assume it, we test it, we practice it so that when it is go time, everyone's very comfortable. I think you mentioned that too when you were talking about room monitors to be, so they're comfortable, and then that translates to the presenters as well. So yeah, so that's a lot of support things. Do you have any comments about engagement or any engagement activities that?
I mean, one that comes to mind is in reference to hybrid events. So when I've supported hybrid events in the past and been able to be on site at the actual event, I've kind of set up where I have a foot in both places at once. So I can engage there with the on-site audience, and then in lots of those situations, they'll break out into discussions or they'll ask for questions. And so in that case, like I usually have my headset on and I can communicate with the virtual audience as well and let them participate just like that they would be there on site. So like when they break into small groups at the actual physical location, we can say, oh, as a virtual group, we could break ourselves into a small group. And so that's helped provide a lot more engagement for those virtual people versus, like, I think what happens in a lot of those situations is the virtual people are kind of stuck in the sit and get situation while everybody else gets to stand up and ask questions or interact in the small group with people around them. And so I think that's one of the things we're cognizant of like, how can we be more equitable to everybody in those hybrid situations and make everybody feel involved and welcome.
Well, I love that, the equitable. And that's not making it exactly the same for everyone, but making sure everyone has, appropriate access for them. So as you were talking about that, I was trending toward the fully virtual events and the engagement there, because I know we've had some chats about, attending an event live versus watching a recording of it, and how do you engage, attendees during that. And I, kind of like to be focused on the content. I don't like to watch the chat or anything, but I know some people do enjoy that. What I have noticed is that or what we kind of guide people to is, again, working with those presenters, hearing what their content is, and then helping them design their session, whatever it is, to be appropriate for their content, but also welcoming and engaging for the attendees. So for instance, if it's a long enough session, and if the content lends itself to how to use breakout rooms, but how do you use them in a way that's not going to scare off people? Because like sometimes, you can't present it as a, doctoral level course to someone in a, 90-minute session. You're like, I didn't want to work that hard, but how to be appropriate with that, but so that people can have presence and be seen and connect with each other, because that's an important part of the learning process. And so a couple things that I think have worked really well with that, like I said, I've seen breakout rooms used really well. I've seen them scare people, but I've also seen them used very effectively. And another one is having dedicated times for virtual networking sessions, to have that noted on the schedule, on the agenda, and communicated out that that's what this is. It's not a formal presentation. And one of the things that we're going to be working with this year is a little additional communication around how to facilitate that, because that's the other thing that we work with, and that don't assume everyone understands how to facilitate a virtual networking or birds of a feathers session. So I think that would be, how do we do that? And we know that those types of things work because, again, we see it we'll talk about this in a future video, but we see it in the comments. People feel like they are connected, that they have a voice, that they can talk with people, and they really enjoy that.
Yeah, I mean, to me, it's really about just best practice in general, right? Is thinking of, I know we say this a lot, but like, what are the goals and intentions? what resources do we have available to us? What's the best way for us to do this? Because I mean, I think I'm even thinking like of just some on-site meetings that I've been to where sometimes, somebody's facilitating a discussion or a team building activity and they haven't been trained properly, or they're really out of their element. And it's like, it's taking those basics and just applying them to a virtual or a hybrid situation as well. It's like, but what's the best way for us to do this? Like I was at an on-site meeting one time, and even though we were all in the same room, instead of just being like, just raise your hand and ask your question, they were like, submit your questions and we'll go through them as you're submitting them and combine ones that are similar, or follow up on ones that we feel like, might be more appropriate for that. And I was like, oh, that was brilliant. Because, sometimes people are a little shy to ask a question. And so this kind of took that out of it. They could just submit it anonymously as if they wanted to. And then two, like sometimes people ask a question that, isn't necessarily, it's like, asking them how much money they make in a year is not really appropriate for this discussion. Like, so, I thought, okay, that's a good best practice that, I feel like comes out of the virtual environment where it's like, oh, everybody submits their Q&A and you can kind of look through it and determine let's order these questions on how we should address these, combine ones that relate together or complement each other. So, it's kind of a best practice for any type of meeting.
As you were sharing that, I was thinking about the engagement among attendees, because that's the other part of a virtual event, to really think about, like, how are they going to have that kind of passing in the hallway feeling that, we love in face-to-face. And, if you listen to the conversation we had in the virtual and hybrid environment, that whole conversation, I think that use of a really good conference app can really help that in the virtual. But as you said, what we're seeing now is that blending in a hybrid, or a lot of apps now, you're like, oh, you can use them in a face-to-face or in a hybrid, or they can be used in the virtual as well. And so I think that was one group we've worked with. It took a couple of years to get people comfortable with the whole virtual. And then now I think that's one of the parts of engagement that really has grown. Now, I know some people like me might be a little slightly addicted to the leaderboard and start chasing the points instead of, so you have to manage your, commitment to that. But a lot of those apps are really good because you can share your links, you can share photos. I've seen some really interesting things done where they're like, oh, share a photo of where you're, connecting from today. And so that's always interesting to see everyone's locations.
Great. So I think that wraps us up for this conversation on engagement and support. We have at least two more left for you. We're going to, surprisingly, next time we're talking about during the event. We've been talking about a lot of things prep or that kind of overlap into the event. So we'll have during the event next time, and then we'll have some stuff for after the event as well.
All right. So thanks for listening in, and we will see y'all in our next video conversation. Bye-bye.